When we are young and going through something traumatic, our brains do something really interesting. They go on record mode. So everything that you are experiencing is remembered. This was highly adaptive for us. It allowed us to remember things of what to do in times of trauma. For Vi, she sees Vander, this figure who is larger than life, scary, but also as a protector. And this imprints so strongly on Vi. This is her age where she's forming her own identity of who is she and who does she want to be. And it is completely no mistake that she becomes so very similar to who Vander is.
Vi, are you sure about this?
Be in and out before anyone notices. All right, everybody, follow me.
Vi has started to walk in Vander's footsteps. She wants to become like him, and so that she's commanding her own troop. And she's really good at being a leader. She is able to delegate and be able to do it in a way that's really concise. She tells everyone what to do, but when they're worried and they question her, she speaks in a voice that is assured. It isn't shrill, it isn't loud, it isn't demeaning. It's just concise. And she ends her sentences in a way that is really kind of short. You're not going to get into trouble. We're going to be fine.
Wait!
Want to see how that ends?
When someone comes up to you and threatens your life, and you want to make sure that they don't try this again, intimidation works, but it only works if the other person actually believes it. And for Vi, she has that steel look. She doesn't even move away from the weapon, which most people would naturally do. But for Vi, her fight or flight reaction is fight. She moves closer to it, not just a little bit closer, but an inch away from the blade. So right away, when she looks at him and her eyes are steel, he believes her. It's not even a question in anyone's mind that she means it.
What are you calling this one?
Whisker.
You want to talk about today?
What's the point? I ruined everything. I always do.
Nobody said that.
Vi is also a very thoughtful mothering figure to Powder. When she comes into the room, she doesn't force Powder to talk. She asks her, does she want to, and allows her to give her the space. I think that that's a really respectful way to be able to handle the situation, especially because she knows that Powder already isn't feeling really good.
You heard them. I'm not a fighter.
You don't have to be. I've got these, and you've got those.
She allows Powder to notice that her uniqueness is what makes her special. It's not just Vi who's the fighter. Vander, the father figure, is also a fighter. And so for Powder, she doesn't see really where she fits. And Vi notices that. She knows that for Powder, it's really important for her to see that her uniqueness is what gives her a strength.
Come with me.
What?
When I was a kid, some guy took my favorite toy and threw it up there.
And then she also wants to show her her own weaknesses and her own failures.
I used to come out here at night, stare at it, hoping maybe the wind or a bird might knock it down. We've all had bad days, but we learn.
I think that that's an issue that many people have. They think that if we show our vulnerability, our humanity, our empathy, people will see that as weakness. And it's interesting because though Vi really embodies that fighter archetype, she understands that empathy is also really important. And she's willing to be able to share her own failures and things that she's upset about in order for Powder to feel okay about her own.
You know, Powder, what makes you different makes you strong. Always remember that, okay?
Even though she's really young and that she's gone through all of this trauma, she's still really affectionate and soothing and shares these little words of wisdom, but she doesn't get really verbose and beat it into people. I think that sometimes when we're so emotionally attached to someone, we think that the more that we say something, the stronger that effect is going to have. But Vi understands that a lot of that is by what you do. She shows her through actions, and that in the end is how we really learn. We learn through mimicry. And so by her touching Powder and being affectionate and saying kind words and just taking the time to listen to her and really listen, that's the effect that it has on Powder and why they both have this strong attachment to each other.
Milo.
On it.
When we're talking about being a good leader, especially in times of stress, Vi has a lot of really good skills. She gives one specific order. She says someone by the name and says what they have to do, which allows people, especially when they're feeling stressed or worried, to be able to stay focused. But you can also see that she's scanning. She's constantly thinking. She's a problem solver. She's made to react, but also she's thinking through the entire situation. And when Vander says, well,
How did you get in? There's guards everywhere.
We found an open window and...
she realizes the error in her ways. She was able to compute that it being easy was probably actually a problem. But because Vi is so reactionary, when she gets stressed, she does things. She wants to get him out so badly that she doesn't second guess that maybe this was too easy. And that is her greatest weakness. And for a lot of us, that's what happens. When we get really stressed and we want something so bad, we kind of throw caution to the wind because that piece of cake is just so close to us. We can almost taste it. And sometimes we need to look before we leap. Especially when Strat is there and there's a big space between two windows and you just jump out of it and then fall and almost die. Thank God I had teleport.
Clagger, see if you can find another way out of here.
Okay.
You don't have to do this.
Yes, I do.
And it's kind of interesting that Vi has taken the position of leader, even though Vander is there and we would say has much more experience. And she right away gets ready for battle. It isn't even a second thought. I love Vi's complete belief in herself. I think, though, that at this age, this often happens to us. It's the age where we feel invulnerable, where nothing can go wrong, where we often believe that anything that's impossible for us is possible, and we're absolutely invulnerable to the world. And for Vi, everyone looks up to her, and when everyone looks up to you, it kind of does feed your ego. You think that you are larger than life. And that comes with a whole bunch of strengths, but a whole bunch of weaknesses, because often when you think that you're invulnerable, you're going to take risks that you wouldn't naturally take.
I told you to stay away.
Please.
I told you to stay away!
No.
For Vi, the whole world has crashed around her. She went from feeling like she was invulnerable and nothing bad could happen to everything bad occurring. And I think that one of the reasons that she's really angry at Powder is actually a projection. Because as the leader, she had asked Powder to stay back, and Powder not staying back is actually her responsibility. So I think that Vi feels a lot of guilt. And because of that, that loss, the anger, the adrenaline, and then her own guilt of the fact that because she left Powder behind, she went at it and did her own thing. That's why I think that she lashes out so strongly. Plus, when Vi goes through that adrenaline response, her reaction is almost always fight. And so she does the thing that she's been taught to do when she feels stress, which is reach out and strike. I am not saying that she's not responsible for her actions. She absolutely is, but I think that we need to put her age in accordance. She's a child. She's still growing up, and everything that she's learned is to fight her way out of things. And so she overreacted, and when we're really angry and upset, our thinking part of the brain turns off. It's chemically numbed and we become very limbic. The fight or flight part of our brain is the one that takes over. And so, though, yeah, you shouldn't strike someone even if you're angry, even if you're upset, it's always the wrong reaction. I'm trying to explain why she did it.
Why did you leave me?
Because you're a jinx! Do you hear me? Milo was right.
Often the words that we say to others are more hurtful than any of the actions that we do. And they're also something that often becomes our own negative voice. Those things that we've said that have hurt others then become internalized by the people that we've hurt. And this is especially the case for Powder.
In what mad world would I trust someone like you?
Do you know what? Find Silco yourself.
I will, thank you.
Undercity's gonna eat you alive.
The effects of Vi going to prison have definitely changed her. She was actually relatively good with her skills at being able to deal with social engineering and sharing things. And you can tell that she's much more gruff, much more upset. That isolation and being stuck in a box all day is really damaging to our own psyche and our self-esteem.
I heard the bathysphere has a nice view. That could be a good way to get a lay of the land.
Too risky.
I'm not showing a whole bunch of scenes between Vi and Caitlin and Vi and Jinx because I did full videos that are on those specifically, but I will show a few of my favorite scenes here and there anyways. Vi before prison was really into working as a team and she was great at it. But after being in prison, being stuck, being alone, having to rely on yourself, now she kind of takes this individualistic approach. And I think one of the reasons for that is that she's had to depend only on herself for a really long time. So she's comfortable with that. But also the effect of losing everyone in your troop, it can really make you want to push people away and just do it yourself. So the only person at risk is you. Still my favorite scene. You can think about being caged for all of that time and then having that freedom, and to see Vi flying through the air with that beautiful backdrop and you see the birds on the mural. That's exactly how she feels now, and she's gonna make full use of it.
Nice jacket. Welcome to the lanes.
A lot of people that have gone through a lot of fear situations, they don't really react the same way when they're under threat. And for Vi, I think that that is the case. Here she has two people coming up to her in this very threatening manner, but not only does she not feel scared, which would be the natural reaction for people, or even angry, all she is interested in that really nice jacket, and she's gonna take it. And when your fear center has been activated so many times and you've been able to handle yourself, your level of threat to different situations goes down. So it's almost like you've passed this level of boss so many times that, you know what, this is gonna be easy, and I like the sweet loot that I'm gonna get.
Rotten luck, boys. Vi?
I think that it's really interesting to watch whenever Vi and Savika are on the screen together, because as Shni said, like, they share a whole bunch of traits. In a lot of ways they're opposite, but they're also very similar. They both kind of have this commanding presence, are really direct, are just straight up fighters. I think that Vi is missing the trait of Savika of being really good at that social manipulation. Vi's kind of really straight and direct. She shows her cards immediately. And I think that that's also one of Vi's weaknesses. She doesn't really hold back on the times that she has to.
I see you never learned patience.
And Savika knows it and calls it on her. She knows that that's Vi's weakness, and so, like a really good fighter, she uses it against her. When you're really, really upset and it gets to your head, you get flustered and you're no longer able to see things as clearly. And that's why when we train in being able to handle these kind of situations, you have to practice those breathing exercises. You have to make sure that you don't end up so upset that you're not really seeing things as clearly in front of you. And that can be used against you.
Where's my sister?
You mean Jinx? She works for him.
When we get lost in a moment, we kind of forget about all of our surroundings because that one thing that we're thinking of takes up all of our mind space. And that's why when you're dealing with something that you really need to focus, your practice is to make sure that you can stay focused even when there's all kinds of distractions that are around you. And that's a really big difference between a mastery and a novice of a skill.
Savika wasn't lying? You're with an enforcer?
Sister is Jinx.
Caitlin, just listen. We can work this out.
This is what we call a triangulated situation, when one person is between two others, and the two others are diametrically opposed. An enforcer, Caitlin, versus her sister, who works for Silco, and Vi's trying to manage between both of them. It's a very stressful situation if you ever find yourself between two people and they're fighting and they're talking to you in between. And usually what we would say is you want to try to have them understand and come to terms so that they can deal with each other. The problem is with a triangle, though, is that if you pull yourself out of it, often the triangle collapses. And that means that the relationship between the two other pieces doesn't really work without you there.
I knew it was a mistake trusting you.
You've been a real picnic yourself.
I'm not the one who walked us into not one, but two of Silco's traps.
Do you see the difference between how both Caitlin and Vi react to stress? Caitlin is struggling and trying to get out of it. Vi doesn't even move. She already has assessed the situation and she knows that her struggling is going to do nothing. And even her voice, Caitlin sounds really stressed. You can tell a lot about how someone feels by their voice. Often when we're stressed, our voice becomes more shrill. It increases in some octaves and you speak in ways that are kind of drawn out. Yet for Vi, she's very concise. Her voice is still as deep as it is usually. And so I would say that for Vi, she isn't really stressed at all in this situation. She's been through worse.
When were you planning to tell me that your lunatic sister works for him?
Just as soon as you came clean about what the hell you're really doing down here.
I told you the truth.
And what happens when we're in these bad, stressful situations? Well, it often happens that we start blaming everything around and we start second guessing things because we're so upset. And it's so much easier to blame someone else than to blame ourselves. Often when you do something wrong or something goes awry, you're looking for the next best thing to blame because if you blame you, it just hurts so much more.
It's me, Vi. Same person who used to take you down to the junk heap and hose you down when you got covered in grease.
That was a long time ago. People change.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
The relationships that we form in childhood are really strong bonds. And to be able to see people that you thought you would never see again is really heart-wrenching and emotional.
I missed you, little man.
And I love that tear, right? When we're able to really let down our guard. And I think that even though Vi has spent all this time in prison and been away from people, she's still able to move other people and make them feel really loved and cared about.
You built all this?
Not alone.
When we meet someone that knew us before we became really powerful or really successful, it's a wonderful thing that Vi is able to really appreciate all the wonderful work that Echo did. And that's often the basket that we hope to have filled. And when we feel appreciated and validated by people, it creates dopamine in our brain, and that forms bonds. And so that kind of repairs all of that time that they haven't spent with each other, that they become really close really quickly all over again.
I should have been there. For you. For everyone.
That's a good way to drive yourself crazy. If I just went with you that day, maybe none of this would have happened.
And so now we deal with survivor's guilt. Vi feels really responsible for not being there where all of the people that depended on her had to make it without her. And Echo gives her really perfect advice. We can't go back. Regret lives in the past, and she can't change that. And whether it was her fault or not, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing she can do now, only to be able to look forward.
If I just went with you that day, maybe none of this would have happened.
Or maybe you'd be dead. Or changed.
And then Vi does the same thing for Echo. He's saying, even though he was a child at the time, that maybe if he was there, something different may have happened. And I think that especially when we've gone through bad traumatic experiences, we often continue to relive them in our head, hoping for a different outcome. And we need to know that, yes, we can learn from it, but we also have to be able to let go and forgive ourselves, because if not, that guilt can be soul-crushing and be so heavy and make us feel bitter and push people away.
It's been real, Cupcake. Thanks for everything.
This scene really shows the closeness between Caitlin and Vi. Vi, who usually has her guard up, who is usually that tough fighter. And that must be really hard for Vi because she's lost all the people that she's been close to and she's fighting so hard to get them back. And here she has to lose someone again, in this case, for their protection.
Top sides and bottom, oil and water. That's all there is.
What about us?
Oil and water.
When we've lost all the people that are close to us, it's a huge risk to get close to someone again. And I think that for Vi, it's not just that she's worried about getting herself hurt, but I think that she's trying to protect Caitlin from her. She probably feels that every time that she gets close to something, it's her fault that they end up getting hurt and she ends up losing them. We often just want to push people away when they actually get close, and sometimes we end up self-sabotaging or saying something horrific because it's just easier. And I think that for Vi, a lot of that is unconscious. It's just her way of being able to deal with people.
I wish I could say it gets easier, kiddo. What I can say is she still needs you. They all do. So what do you say? That's my girl.
What is that voice? What happens when you fall down or things end up going really poorly? What do you hear inside your head? And for Vi, it's Vander. He's that positive coach who helps her pick herself up. And that's the main thing about Vi, is no matter how many times she gets knocked down, she always gets back up. And I believe that because she has this positive coach of Vander inside of her head, it's so helpful. You really want to ask yourself is, what happens to you when you're really down? Are you kind and thoughtful to yourself and that helps you get back up, or are you cruel and malicious, which kind of brings you down and might make you overly reactionary?
Maybe you could love me like you used to, even though I'm different. But you change too.
And that's what Jinx is hoping from Vi in this moment, for Vi to be able to say that I accept you and none of this matters. But I think that for Vi, because she's been in prison for all of that time, she's learned that when she's stressed and upset, the best thing is to say nothing. And in that circumstance, it's true. She talks back to a guard or to someone else or says something, odds are that she might offend or make things worse. And so for Vi, when she's stressed, she's great with reacting, but when she's stressed, she's really bad at being able to communicate. Jinx is reaching out to her. So even though it probably would have been really helpful for Vi to say, I love you and none of that matters, you're my sister, and we know that that's how she feels. Her brain goes blank in that moment because she's so stressed. And remember, when she's stressed, the thinking part of your brain just kind of gets chemically turned off. And plus all those years of isolation and having to deal with all the rigors of prison and the violence also has increased that her stress response is not to say anything. You can also check my Jinx Complete Saga. That's a compilation video of all the Jinx related videos wrapped up in one. It's really long. Would you like a Vi, the Complete Saga Nebula exclusive? If so, comment below. The Jinx Complete Saga compilation has been re-edited, mostly chronologically, and presented as a single psychological analysis of Jinx's journey throughout Arcane Season 1. It's nearly 2 hours long, and it's available ad-free, sponsor-free, only on Nebula, and bundled in for free when you sign up with today's sponsor, CuriosityStream, at curiositystream.com/Georgia Dow, or by clicking on the link below. And right now, today, because you're watching this video, you get CuriosityStream on sale for 26% off. Yes, less than $15 a year, less than the price of a movie ticket, and you get it for the whole year. And that includes their thousands of amazing documentaries and series. Are you inspired by Vi? Well, then you might want to watch The Human Limits. Meet a free diver with extraordinary lung capacity, or a woman who climbs sheer ice picks, and a blind man who sees through echolocation, among other people with superhuman capabilities. Signing up today is the best way to support educational creators directly, and it's the best deal in streaming today for 26% off CuriosityStream, less than $15 a year, and Nebula is bundled in for free. Yes, free. Just click on the button on the screen or go to curiositystream.com/Georgia Dow. Clicking on that link really does help out my channel, so thank you to CuriosityStream and thank you to you for your support. I'll check you guys on the next video.